Hey, what is up, mortals? It's Jennifer Sathwekar here, and before we get into today's video, there's something I'd like to say. I'd like to let you all know that we have a merch store. Some of the items in it are only available for a limited amount of time, so if you're interested, go into the description and check it out. Each purchase helps us make more content. Secondly, if you didn't know, only 25% of you guys are subscribed to us, so please hit that subscribe button and click the bell icon. Now with that out of the way, let's get into the video. Hey mortals, in today's anime theory, we'll be covering one of the most powerful quirks in My Hero Academia, One for All. We'll be talking about its origin, what makes it unique, and how it works. The major part of this theory will tie into the most recent chapter of the manga, and will contain spoilers for the manga, anime, and movie. So again, spoiler warning. One for All is the quirk that is possessed by its current host, Izuku Midoriya, the main character of My Hero Academia. It was given to him by the previous host of the quirk and the #1 hero before his retirement, All Might. In the world of My Hero Academia, quirks are a special, superhuman ability that a person can have in the MHA universe. Quirks are unique to each user, though due to the sheer volume of people in the world, different people can have similar quirks. No one knows how, but suddenly, people began developing unique abilities, first called meta-abilities, then later called quirk. Long ago, a man was born with a quirk that allowed him to steal other quirks and give them away. He used this quirk to take control of society. After a disagreement with his younger brother, he gave him a quirk that allowed him to stockpile power within his body. However, unknown to either of them, the younger brother already had a quirk with no other power than the ability to transfer the quirk to another person. The two quirks, the transference and stockpiling, merged into one, and from then on became One for All. The younger brother, on learning this new ability, tried to confront his older brother. He was, however, unable to defeat the older brother, as the difference in their strength proved insurmountable. The younger brother decided to entrust the quirk to future generations of heroes, hoping that they would cultivate One for All and one day put a stop to the older brother, who took on the moniker of All for One. Very few people know the truth of One for All, that the most powerful quirk in the world is transferable. If that knowledge came into the wrong hands, it would be terrifying with what lengths villains would go to attain or control it. All for One sought after One for All, and as a result, almost all the users of One for All have fought and have been killed by his hand. But each user had transferred their quirks to a successor before One for All could take the quirk. The last holder killed by All for One was the 7th, Nana Shimura. Her apprentice, the 8th holder, All Might, fought All for One at least twice and won both battles. Unfortunately, after the first battle, All Might was weakened. So weakened that he couldn't use the quirk for more than 3 hours a day. It was because of this, and through an example of selfless bravery from a young boy, that All Might transferred his power to the 9th and current holder of One for All, Izuku Midoriya. One for All is a transferable quirk that can be passed from one user to the next. Its name comes from its nature. One, symbolizing one quirk, for all people. For the quirk to be transferred, the recipient must ingest a sample of the predecessor's DNA, a strand of hair, a drop of blood, etc. Interestingly, the current holder must willingly and consciously decide to transfer the quirk when the piece of DNA is ingested. It can't be forcibly taken, but it can be forcibly given. This is why the quirk is so coveted by All for One. One for All's most notable ability is the allowance of the user to stockpile an enormous amount of raw power, allowing them to significantly boost all of their physical abilities to a superhuman level. This results in the public perception of unbelievable levels of strength, speed, agility, and durability. The user can focus the stockpiled power into a single body part, or spread the power evenly throughout their body. Focusing the power, though, puts a greater strain on the part of the body where the power is focused. But the user can control the percentage of the power that they activate. Due to this ability to stockpile power, and due to quirks still being physical abilities no matter their nature, One for All can boost the strength of an individual's quirk if they have one. Take a look at our One for All deep dive. There are possibly 6 quirks hidden in One for All other than its stockpiling and transferring powers. 2 of these quirks we know, Black Whip, which has been demonstrated, and Float, which belonged to the 7th user, Nana Shimura. The 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 6th users of the quirk have unknown identities, but were all likely to be quirk users. As All Might states, he had been the first wielders who have been born quirkless. Along with this, each previous wielder of One for All left a little bit of their essence in One for All, allowing them to do things normally unexplainable. such as Midoriya being able to resist mind control during the school competition, or when he had a conversation with the fifth holder, Diagoro. Before we get back into the theory, I would like to say that in case you guys didn't know, we are a secondary channel to our main channel, We the Celestials. We the Celestials is full of fun what-if stories. Please give that channel a visit as well. If you are interested in the content we share with all channels, make sure you click the icon in the top right corner or check the description below for a link to the channel. Now with that out of the way, let's get back into the story. The first major theory we'll be tackling is how the stockpiling quirk combined with the younger brother's quirk, and how the younger brother had a quirk with an ability like being able to be transferred to someone else. All for One's origins aren't clear, but at the least, we can assume he was probably born with his quirk, which allowed him to take other quirks, use them for himself, and transfer them to others. Shoto Todoroki, whose quirk is half cold, half hot, was born with a fusion quirk of his father's and his mother's, who had powerful fire and ice quirks respectively. The children born from that family had quirks and bodily compositions concerning the pairing. Toya, Shoto's older brother, had possessed flame quirks more powerful than his father's, but had his mother's weak constitution. This is an example of siblings inheriting quirks based on their parents' dispositions, expressed in different ways. Using this as an example, All for One having a quirk that can take other quirks away means that a sibling can be born with similar but different powers, that being the power to transfer a quirk to another. The nature of the combination can be seen through the way Bakugo's explosion quirk is a combination of his mother's quirk to naturally produce glycerin, causing her youthful look, and his father's ability to cause sparks by clapping his hands. The fusion of the stockpiling and giving quirk was then in many ways a miracle, as All for One cannot take One for All, tying back again to the nature of the quirk to only be transferable through a willing previous host. The next part of the theory will contain spoilers for the anime, manga, and My Hero Academia movie Heroes Rising. The most recent chapter in My Hero Academia ends with a scene of Shigaraki attempting to reach out to Midoriya, likely to try to steal One for All from him. People are debating whether Shigaraki will steal the quirk, or is even capable of stealing the quirk. That's likely not going to happen, and here's why. We are given hints that One for All has some bit of a will of its own. The first instance of it is from the UA Sports Festival arc. Izuku Midoriya fights against another student from a support class by the name of Hitoshi Shinso. Shinso has a quirk that allows him to mind control, and gives commands to anyone who responds to him speaking. Shinso gets Midoriya riled up, causing him to fall for the control. Shinso then orders Midoriya to walk off the stage. Midoriya's body obeys, even as he struggles in his mind. At the edge of the arena, Izuku gets a vision of what he later believes to be one of the previous users of One for All, and his quirk activates, breaking one of his fingers as well as Shinso's quirk's control. Izuku then defeats Shinso. Izuku tells All Might of the mysterious figures, and All Might remarks that he had seen something similar when he was younger, stating that they were the imprints of those who wielded One for All. All Might argues, however, that it was Midoriya's willpower, rather than the imprints, that allowed him to activate One for All. Izuku isn't convinced, but leaves to watch more matches. The next strange interaction is during a dream Izuku has. He is wrapped in blackness and next to the other successors of One for All, witnessing a confrontation between All for One and his little brother, the original holder of One for All. This view of the past ends with All for One transferring the stockpiling quirk, in which the vision ends and the original wielder passes his hand to Midoriya, telling Izuku that he isn't alone. Izuku speaks to All Might the next day, talking about what transpired. All Might states that Izuku is probably the only one who has awakened this phenomenon, and Izuku states that he had doubted when All Might had stated that One for All didn't have a will of its own. A little after, All Might receives a call from Gran Torino. This apparent will is hinted at more, however, during the joint training sessions between Class 1A and Class 1B. During the 5th round, dark energy tendrils start shooting out of Izuku's arm, damaging his surroundings and pulling him along against his will. Izuku during this stated he couldn't deactivate One for All, but with the efforts of Ochako and Shinso, they were able to stop the rampage by brainwashing Izuku. During this state, Izuku was sent into his subconscious, where he met with and had a conversation with Daigoro Banjo, wielder of One for All and the original user of the Black Whip quirk Deku had just unlocked. Daigoro is energetic and tells Deku that 5 other quirks are within him that will manifest eventually, and gives the quirk the name Black Whip. Back to the theory. This will contain spoilers for the My Hero Academia Heroes Rising movie, so major spoilers ahead. The movie centers around Class 1A facing down a villain by the name of 9, a villain for whom All for One granted the ability to steal and possess up to 9 quirks with a weaker copy of All for One. 9, however, suffered from the power of his quirks and sought a quirk that could heal his body. 9 held the ideology that those with the strongest quirks should rule the world over those with weaker quirks, which informed his decision to steal a quirk from Mr. Shimano, a man with the ability to heal called Cell Activation. Unfortunately, Shimano's quirk only worked on the B blood type, and is thus incompatible with 9's body. 9 surmises that since Shimano has children, one of them could have a better version of the quirk. During their first fight, 9 attempts to steal Midoriya's quirk but gets a vision of the 8 previous users, which somehow stops him from being able to steal the quirk. Midoriya, though, gets the distinct impression that 9 attempted to just steal his quirk then, and warns all his friends that 9 could steal quirks, and maybe after Katsuma Shimano's quirk, Katsuma having an enhanced version of his father's healing quirk. During the final battle, Midoriya and Bakugo fight with all their might, but are unable to best 9. But before the villain could take the quirk from Katsuma, Deku gives Bakugo One for All. Deku, using the embers inside him, and Bakugo, using the combined power of One for All and his now heightened explosion quirk, fight and defeat 9. All Might, alongside the military and professional heroes, arrives on the island shortly after, and Deku apologizes, saying he had to sacrifice his quirk. All Might, though, realizes that Bakugo doesn't have the quirk and that it remained in Deku. He then surmises that either the transfer ritual was interrupted due to them losing consciousness, or that One for All somehow chose to remain in Deku as the main host. It is further implied that that may be the case, as Bakugo does not remember taking in the quirk and woke up with no understanding as to why his arms were broken and purple along the same level as Deku's injuries when he first began using One for All. While the canonicity of the movie can be put to some question, Horikoshi, the author of the series, created a manga booklet for the first 1 million audience members that included an extended interview, character designs, and sketches, showing he had at the least something to do with the story's plot and the villain's ability. These examples show that One for All's core may have attained enough power throughout the years and host that it's developed a will of its own, a will powerful enough to both resist being stolen by a villain who can steal quirks, and to remain in the body of a host it still believed was worthy. Midoriya's act of self-sacrifice to save Bakugo at the beginning of the series was what caused All Might to pass on his quirk, and that same sense of duty and self-sacrifice caused him to willingly sacrifice his quirk to Bakugo so they could save Katsuma and stop 9. If that's not convincing enough, it should be noted that All for One hasn't been able to steal One for All, despite how long he's been searching for the quirk. While we don't fully see the method by which he steals the quirk, we do know that it involves some physical contact. Until we see the first battle between All for One and All Might, we can assume that All for One simply couldn't steal the quirk like he could with other quirks. Given that One for All can only be transferred by a willing previous owner, it doubles as another insurance as to why the quirk hasn't been stolen. In the manga, we learn that Shigaraki underwent a great transformation and had received All for One's true version of his quirk, alongside several powerful quirks All for One had in his disposal and had passed on in this way. This transformation and Shigaraki's subsequent awakening was such that Deku could feel it. Shigaraki is now frightfully powerful, but until we learn more about his new powers, just like All for One and just like the villain 9, Shigaraki is likely not able to steal One for All, though we're all looking forward to the big fights that are sure to come. Thank you all for watching the video to the end. Now, there's a few more things that I'd like to go over before the video ends. On behalf of We the Celestials, I'd like to thank the writer for this video, as well as the editors for this video. Their details will be in the description. If you're a voice actor, editor, or writer, or you're interested in becoming one of those, go to the Discord that's in the description of this video and hit up the head of one of those areas. We're always looking for members to join us. That's it from us for today's video, so thank you all for watching, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you're interested, and hit that like button if you liked the video. Until next time, peace out mortals, have an amazing day.